Anyhow, this is, I didn't really plan this out very well, so it's going to be kind of just extemporaneous, but that's generally how I work best anyhow. Um, so what I want to do is essentially two things. I want to tell my story of my kind of path to Orthodox Christianity, and I also want to speak about what Orthodoxy is, how it differs from other forms of nominal Christianity and other spiritual systems. And the two topics will probably bleed into each other, and I'll probably go off on wild tangents here and there, but hopefully I can thread it all back at the end. And then, depending on how many people end up seeing this, I'm not anticipating a lot of people watching it, but maybe I'll get some questions, and maybe I'll answer all the questions at the end or take them as they come. We'll see. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how it's going to go. But anyhow, I guess let's just get right into it. I was not raised in a Christian family or any kind of religious upbringing. I was uh, I was raised in a small town in New Hampshire in America, and I grew up in a trailer park, and I had a lot of friends, which was great. I'm actually pretty grateful for my upbringing, despite it being lower class or whatever, because it was stable. We never moved. I lived in the same place my whole childhood, and my friends were the same friends. I had the same friends for well over 20 years, and that's a great blessing for anybody to have. But I wasn't raised with any kind of, we didn't go to church on Sunday, but, I was raised on basic secular morality, which, let's be honest, really comes from Christian morality. It's, work hard, treat people with respect, and very basic stuff. So, sure enough, though, I fell into plenty of sinful behaviors as I became a teenager. Um, I wasn't good in school. Smoking weed, drinking, pornography. As soon as I had a phone that had the internet, pornography was a very normal, regular part of my life. Maybe not normal. It's not normal, but um, so. But I think I always had a desire for truth. I wanted to know the truth of things. My dad was a bit of a conspiracy theorist. I remember my dad watching Alex Jones as early as like the year 2000, 2001, whenever we got web TV, which some people might be familiar with web TV, an ancient relic from the past. Um, so my dad, you know, I was raised by my father. My parents split when I was like 4. And me and my sister lived with my father until my sister was 13. She wanted to go to a different high school, so she moved in with my mom. Um, but I was raised by my dad, and my dad, uh, like I said, work hard, be respectful to people, but seek truth was a big thing with my dad, and try to get to the bottom of things. And my father actually had been raised for a brief time Roman Catholic. He went to a Roman Catholic school when he was in like first grade. But his parents, my grandmother kind of fell out of the faith. My grandfather was an atheist, my grandmother Roman Catholic, and they ended up splitting. So my dad was out of the church by the time he was in second or third grade, and those things never really stuck. But being an American, just by virtue of being an American, you end up hearing about the Bible. You end up hearing about biblical stories. So I remember hearing, basic biblical things when I was young, um, about, what just people getting, just the basics of getting married as a institution of God and all this stuff. But I didn't really know anything about Christianity except what the culture told me. And basically in America, you get this sort of hillbilly Protestant Christianity that is, as I came to find out, very watered down. And so the thing is, I mean, the story of a man crucified, killed for the sins of the world, as bizarre as it is, when you hear about that as a young person, there is something strangely that sticks about it. So, I guess I was never, and it was never really hostile to Christianity, but I didn't really get it, and the version of it that was available to me culturally didn't make sense. It was just too weird, and it seemed like like I said, this thing that like simpletons believe, or I just didn't know anything about it, so I kind of rejected it. Didn't give it much attention, I suppose. It was popular when I was a young teenager to rail against the church, and everybody knew about scandals in the Catholic Church with sex abuse and this and that. It was all very I don't know. The culture was definitely against Christianity or the idea of what do they say, organized religion. Um, so I went with the culture in that regard, and I didn't really give it much mind. So, but anyhow, as a teenager, getting into drugs and eventually like psychedelics, I got into psychedelics, and that became a what I thought was a spiritual awakening. And so, I never really considered myself an atheist, and once I started experimenting with you know psilocybin mushrooms and oh, I'm getting some comments here. Jason says my dad rule. My dad does rule. He's pretty cool. Trying to convert him to Christianity now, which is kind of weird. And Dan sees I got Snoopy over here. Always got Snoopy. Um, so anyway, I'm kind of rambling, and I apologize because I'm very nervous because I'm on the internet and I'm live. Even though I know these people who are here personally, so I don't know why I'm nervous. It's not a big deal. But I hope I'm not being boring too, because I'm making this longer than it has to be. Probably I want to get to the more important stuff. Um, so getting into psychedelic drugs, as anybody who's done them knows, that they seem to suggest or open up a spiritual reality to things. And having already been kind of an agnostic, I was very open to that. And I was, from the time I was like 15 or 16, I was smoking weed, and then whatever, 16, 17, doing mushrooms, and you know, it just, from there, everything, LSD, and I've done hard drugs, cocaine, methamphetamines, and a lot of stuff, and I'm not proud of it. But you know, um, so anyway, fast forward. So I'm kind of a partier. I dropped out of high school. I took a job as I had a couple jobs. I did cable for many years, like 3 or 4 years. It seemed like a long time. 3 or 4 years. That was like really hard, backbreaking work. But if I wasn't working, I was getting wasted. And then I took a job in 2015. I would have been, what, 26. So in 2015, I take a job as a truck driver, and I'm on my own all the time, driving my truck around, and I have an auxiliary cable plugged into my phone. So I'm listening to whatever podcasts. I remember I was really into Bill Burr's podcast, which is just comedy. Um, and then I'd watch Joe Rogan here or there if he was interviewing somebody I thought was interesting. And all the while, I mean, this exposure to psychedelic drugs have kind of gets you into, I mean, inadvertently will get you into new age culture. And I was going to like music festivals and stuff, and that's really big there. New age, which I don't even know what to say about new age. It's just kind of a jumbled heap of like a mix of like Eastern, uh, what do you say, Hinduism and Buddhism, and it's sort of just a a buffet of all these different, it's kind of whatever you want it to be. But it's all very superficial. And that even though I was into crystals and I was into Eastern meditation practices, there was something, I always felt that there was something very superficial about it, and that it always left something to be desired. And I'm like, how many times do I have to eat mushrooms before, I finally reach enlightenment? um, so I was still searching, I was still looking and yearning, and there's just a lot of corny stuff I bought into, like numerology, like whenever the clock says 11:11, you're supposed to make a wish. Um, but anyway, so in 2016, um, I saw on YouTube a video popped up onto my feed, which I don't even think you can find anymore since Joe Rogan since Joe Rogan joined Spotify, he got rid of a bunch of his old videos. But he had a video on there that was 11 minutes and 11 seconds long, and me and my stupid um, new agey brain, I saw it and I clicked on it, and the video was called Jordan Peterson on the Truth. And holy moly, did that open up a whole can of worms for me. So here's this guy, Jordan Peterson, a psychologist, and he was talking about Christianity in a way that I had never heard anybody talk about Christianity. And to be honest, I don't even really remember what he said in that particular video, but anybody who's familiar with Jordan Peterson knows his body of work, Psychology, and then he had his famous biblical lecture series. So this is late 2016, I think it's like December of 2016, I got obsessed with Jordan Peterson, and in 2017, I watched all three of his lecture series, his Maps of Meaning, Psychology 101, and his Biblical series. So those were like at least 10 videos each, 2.5 hours each, and I'm just driving around in my box truck devouring all this stuff. And to be honest, I love Jordan Peterson. I did. I still do. I like the guy, and I pray for him. There's plenty I disagree with him now. I disagree with him on now, but so at the time I was really I liked his work, but it was kind of hard for me to apply it because I was I was over the age of 25. I kind of felt like my youth was fading behind me. I didn't have a girlfriend. I didn't have, all I had was this job and my weekend warrior stuff, getting high and drunk on the weekends. Um, and I didn't feel like I had, his self-help kind of approach. It wasn't doing much for me. I liked listening to it and learning from it, but it left something to be desired. But he was starting to do interviews and talking to several people. The two big ones, the two big people that he got me kind of attached to were Bishop Barron, who's a Roman Catholic bishop who's had a YouTube channel for a long time, since like the mid 2000s or something. So I started watching his videos, and then the other guy was Jonathan Peugeot, the Orthodox Christian iconographer. So then I, started investigating that stuff. Jonathan Peugeot in a big way, because although he's a Christian, he kind of talks about things that are digestible for a secular person. I was a secular person. I might have thought I was spiritual, but so you guys, no offense, but I'm getting distracted by the comments here. So I will get to the comments, and you guys can keep writing them, but I gotta hide them on the screen because I keep getting sidetracked. How the heck do I do it though? All right, I'll get to the chat in a little bit. I'll take a break at some point. So got into Jonathan Peugeot, and essentially this is 2017, and by like spring of 2018, I was calling myself a phenomenologist. I'm a phenomenologist now, which I basically I believed was kind of the fruition of my quote unquote spiritual outlook on life. I believed it was like an accurate description of sort of the inner yearnings I had always had about the world. And if you want to know how the way I was thinking, you can go watch my video on phenomenology from around that time. It was like March, April, or May 2018. Um, so that was a step. It definitely wasn't like I hadn't found my home yet, but it was definitely leading to something. And the big real the big change, I suppose, was eventually by listening to Bishop Barron and Jonathan Pageau, I eventually came to C.S. Lewis, um, the writer, and so I listened to Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis in like mid or like fall of 2018. And it was right in the middle of listening to that, driving around in my box truck. I said, I gotta go to church. I gotta find a church. It was at that point I believed that there was a God. I'd been believing in God, this idea of God or believing God, acting as if He exists, as like Jordan Peterson says. I've been kind of doing that thing for like a year or so, but it was in the middle of Mere Christianity that I said, I think this Jesus guy really is the creator of the universe. And so not knowing anything about church history, ecclesiology at all, I just said I got to find a church. So I reached out to the only Christian I knew, which is a friend of mine from my youth. I reached out to him and I said, "Hey, I need to start going to church. What church do you go to?" And I'll just go to that one. He lived the next town over, so the church was the next town over, and that was no problem. So I started going to this church, which described itself as a trans-denominational church, but based on my understanding now, it was a Protestant church, and I met some really incredible, wonderful people there, and I really enjoyed being there. I enjoyed the community aspect of it. I was in the band. I played guitar. Um, I mean, just a quick story. There was the guy who hosted the the guy who was in charge of the band. We would meet at his house once a week, and he and his wife had taken on raising these two very young children, like a baby and her toddler brother, who were the grandchildren of the family's friend, the grandchildren of a family who was friends with this family who was in charge of the band, because the parents of these children had tragically fallen into drug addiction. So here, these people who already had children of their own who were grown took on these two babies and are raising them. They're still raising them now, and like that's just incredible. A remarkable self-sacrificial act of love. So right away, I was seeing the kinds of things that Christianity motivates people to do, and here I had spent years thinking that I was spiritually enlightened because I do mushrooms, and I'd never given to charity. I'd never done, you know, So just a very concrete, hard example of what it really does mean to be spiritual. And, um, part of in reading Mere Christianity, I had come to realize something that I always felt was true, which is that if there is a God or some creative force behind the world, that it has to be love. It has to be rooted in love. And in reading Mere Christianity, through this kind of painstaking search, you do come to find that the God of the Christians, despite what can seem like his harshness, he is love incarnate. That the Christian standard of behavior is love in the deepest sense. And even though on the outside that can seem like a difficult thing to understand, but I'm getting a little sidetracked because there's other things that I want to include in this. I kind of have to bolster this with a whole bunch of stuff because, you know, I'm 3 or 4 years into this journey now, and like anything, it becomes insular and it's hard to understand what other people from the outside might be thinking about what I'm saying. Um, you know, one of the things I do regularly say is that when I was reading Mere Christianity and I had that realization that I had to become a Christian, that was not a happy day. I knew I had to give up a lot of things that I'd become very attached to. Um, the drugs, the pornography, the getting drunk, and all of that. Um, so I'm in this Protestant church, and uh, the church meets in a movie theater on Sundays. They rent out one of the theater halls, and they meet in a movie theater. And I'm in the band, so we play some songs, and then we sit down, we listen to the pastor. And there was no like high theology, it was just very pastoral advice about basically how to conduct yourself in day-to-day life. And the people were all very wonderful, but something was missing. Um, Even like if you read C.S. Lewis, he wasn't in, I think he was in the Church of England, he wasn't in the Orthodox Church or the Catholic Church or anything. But even just reading him, you get this sense of grandeur about Christianity, this sense of mystery and depth that was just lacking in this church I was in. So I spent a little over a year in that church, and but all the while, I was still driving my box truck at work every day, consuming material, learning more and more and more about Christianity, about church history and ecclesiology, and really getting into Jonathan Pajot's stuff and knowing, learning he's an Orthodox Christian, and so I was considering the Orthodox Church, and I was also considering Catholicism, knowing that my family had been Catholic just a few generations ago. But I was in some Facebook groups and talking with people and discussing, and I did eventually settle on Orthodoxy. I said I've got to become Orthodox. Um, And that was a very difficult thing because here I just spent a year, more than a year, being attached to to this Protestant church, and knowing that I would have to tell them somehow. And I had been kind of hinting at it, like at the band practices. I mentioned that my whole journey into Christianity, I had, Orthodox theology was always kind of at least liminally present in all of it. So um, the and then there was other problems trying to find which Orthodox church to join because in America there's not a lot of Orthodox churches. And the one I did eventually settle on was a Russian Orthodox church, which is 45 minutes from my house here. And that was a difficult process too because there was a Greek Orthodox church just the next town over, but one of the guys in the groups that I was in was telling me about the schism that happened in 2018 between the Greek church and the Russian church. And shout out to that his name's Brad, and he might end up watching this. Brad was extremely important in pushing me in the right direction to choose the right church because having chosen the Protestant church and being unhappy with that, I didn't want to do this wrong again. I wanted to get it right, and I did, and I'm going to get to that. I definitely chose the right church, and it's thanks to Brad. Um, so the big move from the church I had been in to now the Orthodox Church happened in early 2020 when COVID-19 caused everything to shut down because they shut down movie theaters, and my church was in a movie theater. So, despite how much suffering all these lockdowns caused everybody, for me, it was actually very, very providential. And I reached out to the priest at the Orthodox Church in Methuen, and he said, "Come to a Sunday liturgy." And the first time I went to an Orthodox Divine Liturgy was on June 28th of 2020, June 15th on their calendar, because we use the old calendar. But yeah, and it was very strange the first time I went. It wasn't like I went there and fireworks were going off or anything. It was very strange and something I definitely knew I was going to have to get used to, but I had been kind of immersing myself in more and more in Orthodox theology. And the more I did that, the more other kinds of Christian teaching just kind of fell away and anybody who's looked into Orthodoxy will find that happens. Orthodoxy it has all the answers. And it is, like I was saying in the beginning, when you're a young person and you hear about a man who died on a cross for your sins, there is something, for some reason, about that sticks to your heart. And I didn't know why until I discovered Orthodoxy, because all of the weird versions of Christianity I had heard about growing up didn't make any sense. They're just too, like I said, watered down. But Orthodoxy is ancient, it's mysterious, it's beautiful, and it's unchanged. They haven't changed anything. They've developed, they've grown, there's more saints now than there were then, but they've kept the tradition. And so, I mean, once, all right, plowing ahead. So I was, after a couple months attending liturgies at the Orthodox Church, I was prayed into the catechumenate. And in some sense, I felt I'd kind of already at that point been a catechumen for 2 years. And I wasn't not blessed a catechumen, but learning and researching Christianity. So I'm getting a little flustered here, so why don't I jump into the chat and see what's going on? Take a break, and I'll talk about my catechesis. Okay. Jay, nice job Christ pilling your wife. Very good. We gotta Christ pill people. Do I mess with Jay Dyer? Actually, I knew about Jay Dyer for a long time, but I've only started watching him in the last couple months, and he's great. I know that he gets a lot of flack from people on the internet I don't really know why, but I like Jay. I think he's hilarious, and obviously the guy's knowledge of theology is just unbelievable. I don't know how he finds time to read all the stuff he does. Yun.rent? Dan, what are you talking about? Yun.rent. And that's funny, Tony. To be deep in history is to cease to be Protestant. Ooh, I got to be careful. I don't want to throw dirt on anybody because, like I said, I had Protestant friends, and people are Protestant because they don't know about Orthodoxy generally. Yes, the Russian Orthodox Church was the right choice there. I would say, of all the patriarchates in America, I think the Russian Church has remained the most traditional. So that's been a great blessing because, it's rigorous. The prayer rules are rigorous, but I wanted it to be rigorous that way, I make sure I don't get lazy. So, all right. Talking about the last, I say it's been about a year. I was just baptized 2 weeks ago. So I spent about a year as a catechumen, and My priest didn't really give me too much specifically to do. He knew that I was researching things on my own. He said, just keep going, keep praying. He told me which prayer books to buy, and I tried to beef up my prayer rule. So I'm doing the 20 minutes of morning prayers in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening, and in the last couple months, I started doing the daily readings, which is just like the troparions to the saints for the day, the daily scripture readings, a couple other prayers that I decided to add, like a prayer to find a spiritual father, because as of now, I guess my priest is my spiritual father, but I don't have like a committed spiritual father who's, working with me one-on-one. And then um, a funny story about choosing my patron saint. So I usually stand in the same place in the church every time I go, which is on the right side, and on the southern wall, right next to where I stand, is this huge, giant icon. It's one of the biggest icons we have in the whole church, and it's stylistically very different from the other ones. It's sort of Middle Eastern looking. I think even the the writing on it is like Assyrian or something. So I couldn't read it, and I could kind of, at this point, I'd been learning about the saints, and I recognize most, you recognize the saints, but this one was definitely unique, and I didn't know who the saint was, and I never really thought to ask. So I I had to choose a patron saint. Once I got about halfway through my time as a catechumen, and still familiarizing myself with the saints, and I'd been kind of just dipping my toe into the church fathers for a year or so, year and a half. Ephraim the Syrian and Saint Ephraim the Syrian, Saint Maximus the Confessor, Saint Gregory of Nyssa, and I settled on Saint John of Damascus because I his writings I found just to be the easiest to digest. He writes very clearly. He writes as if he could have lived like 10 years ago, and here he lived 1,200 years ago, and he also, because of the time frame and the place that he came out of, he represents a kind of completion of the patristic tradition that came before. And if people know about him, he has this book here, Exact Exposition of the Orthodox Faith, where he, in very simple language, really just hits every single important aspect of theology there is. So for me, he was really my biggest help in understanding theology, and I loved his life story. So I chose St. John of Damascus. And 2 days after I decided on St. John of Damascus, I was in the church, and for some reason I decided to ask my priest, Father, who's the saint in this giant icon I'm always standing next to? I said, that's St. John of Damascus. So I was like, of course it is. And that's how it works. I mean, they do. You think you choose your patron saint, but they say, these guys, they're in paradise. They're in a bigger, they're in a more real reality than we are. So they really are choosing us. And I've had several other, I almost said coincidences. We don't believe in coincidences. We believe in providence. But I've had several other providential moments with St. John of Damascus. I don't even remember what they were, but that was the big one. Actually, he's right there. That's the only icon I have that's actually written by hand. All the other ones I have are printed. So I chose St. John of Damascus as my patron saint, and then, man, just, the things that happen when you're in the Orthodox Church, there's just these little moments almost every time I attend a liturgy or a vigil. There's just these, like, incredible photographic moments that happen. Like, there was a family that came in, and I think there was a whole family, a mother, a father, their two sons, and their young daughter, and they started coming faithfully, like they'd be the first ones there and the last ones to leave. They say they would be, they are. They're still coming. They're still catechumens right now. But there was one time at liturgy, I just glanced over, and the father made the sign of the cross, and he looks down at his son, and his son makes the sign of the cross, and he smiles at him. This smile, just like this joyous smile, just knowing that they had found the true faith. And here, these people are probably Christians their whole lives. You just get these incredible little moments. The children, the most well-behaved children I've ever seen in my life. We have this little altar boy who's just he's better. I should be asking him to pray for me, but just I don't know. I can't believe it really is an overflowing of peace and joy that you get in the Orthodox Church that is unlike anything I've ever experienced. And to not have been raised Christian and kind of to make a very quick jump, what feels like a very quick jump to me from going to not even being religious to Orthodoxy. I don't have a whole lot of I don't know anything about Roman Catholicism, and a very brief encounter with one version of Protestantism. Of course, there's like tens of thousands of different kinds of Protestant churches, but the magic that you witness in Orthodox churches is amazing, and so um, I mean, all the while too, I'm trying to stop sinning, trying to stop doing these things that I've always done. Um, One thing that's very weird is that I thought quitting pornography would be very difficult, and I thought quitting marijuana would be very easy, and the opposite has been true. Where quitting pornography, what was difficult, and it was just I had to slowly wean myself off of it, and as I became more steeped in the faith, pornography became more and more horrifying to me. Every time I tried to give myself over to it, I would just, anybody who's tried to repent of it knows, weeping and just crying out to God, um, and it got to a point where I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. It was too terrible. And I mean, pornography. It's no mystery that it's completely evil to the core. It's tied to drug addiction and depression, and I mean for people who are in the pornography industry, drug addiction, depression, suicide, rape, human trafficking. It's just a cesspool of evil, and the more you try to live the Christian life, the more you feel that in a very powerful way whenever you subject yourself to it. So I guess the hatred that grew in me for pornography made it easy to walk away from it. And whereas marijuana was just a regular part of my life since I was 15 or 16 years old. Every day I would smoke weed. It was just kind of the thing to do. And getting off of it was difficult. And I'll say I was baptized 2 weeks ago, and I haven't, but I smoked weed the week leading up to my baptism, but I haven't done it since then. And I think this is the longest I've ever gone. And I'm not looking back. I don't miss it. I think knowing that I have to confess my sins is pretty powerful, even though we know Christ sees everything that we do, but knowing that you actually have to confess it to a priest adds that extra layer of no can do. And I feel I'm already feeling better without it. It feels stupid that I even had so much trouble with it. But so I guess I feel like I have to say more, but I might as well get to the the big enchilada, which is my baptism, and the following day taking Holy Communion. And I'm gonna try not to get emotional, but I might. You're all about to see a grown man cry. Um, my baptism. I just anticipating my baptism into the Holy Orthodox Church. And now, having fallen in love with Christ, and knowing that this was his one true, holy, Catholic, and Apostolic Church, it was weighing heavily on me. These feelings of unworthiness, and who is worthy, to be in communion with the creator of the universe. So I was pretty freaked out by the prospect of my baptism approaching. But one thing that helped very much was that the nativity fast came. So in the weeks leading up to my baptism, I was fasting. And anybody who's fasted knows that it makes prayer much easier to enter into. It makes prayer much more powerful. It makes you love prayer more. And so having those prayerful couple weeks leading up to my baptism definitely made it easier to understand what I was really doing. And then when the actual day of my baptism came, which was the baptism was at 3:30 p.m., which the Orthodox day actually begins at 3 p.m. So the next day would have been the feast of St. Nicholas the Wonder Worker. So technically my baptism was at the vigil for the feast of St. Nicholas the Wonder Worker. And that's what a blessing that is, because in the Orthodox Church, I mean, St. Nicholas is considered one of the greatest saints of all of history. For anybody that doesn't know, he's the basis for Santa Claus. So it was just a wonderful and blessed day to be baptized. And what I found was that for all of the anticipating my baptism that I had done, I felt pretty robotic and automatic at my baptism and chrismation. My priest, he had me go through the motions, and I guess I was anticipating to. I thought that, like, I would have some kind of vision and be transported into heaven or something while I was under the water, but it wasn't like that. It was certainly there was a change, but it was very subtle. But the big light bulb going on moment was the next morning, receiving Holy Communion. And so when you're baptized, you're given the baptismal robe, which is this white garment that you wear after you come out of the water. And you wear it when you leave the church, and then you wear it when you come back to liturgy the next morning. So I'm wearing this white robe, and for the first time, I didn't leave the room when they did the prayer of the catechumens depart. Up until then, I would always leave and go into the side room and listen to the service from there. But that day I stayed in the apse, and when the line started to form to receive communion, I was escorted right to the front, and so I'm at the front of the line, and I've got the royal doors in front of me, and the veil is closed, and the hymns are being chanted behind me by the choir. The choir at my church is amazing, amazing, angelic, absolutely angelic. Every time I go, I'm just blown away by how talented they are. So, in like movies, when the main character has like a really like intense moment, and like there's this slight ringing that comes in and everything gets really quiet. That's kind of what it was like standing at the royal doors. And every spiritual pursuit that I had ever had leading up to then was superficial, and it always left something to be desired. But here I am standing in front of the royal doors, and I'm about to partake of the holy mysteries, the body and blood of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And then the veil was open, and the royal doors opened, and the priest came out. Actually, and that day, my regular priest wasn't serving. My regular priest was at a St. Nicholas church in Connecticut for their patronal feast. The priest serving was Father Nathan Williams, who some of you may know as the translator of Father Daniel Sisoyev's writings. He actually recently translated an interview with Father Daniel, priest martyr Father Daniel's wife, who some of you might be familiar with. He had an interview on Craig Julia's channel. So that was a wonderful blessing. Father Nathan's a wonderful priest, and he delivered the liturgy with great reverence, and he speaks very deeply and boldly, and so that was wonderful. And he comes out with the chalice, and Father Deacon John on his right and Father Deacon Alexander on his left, and these are two wonderful, wonderful people who I'd become very close with, Father John especially. And there, Father Nathan says the prayers for communion, and Father Alexander and Father John, they're looking at me and they're smiling, and they were like angels inviting me up to the cup. And I took Holy Communion, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I had found it. I had found the truth I had always been seeking, and it was not superficial. And it was subtle. It was a subtle change that happened in me, but this incredible peace came over me, this joy, and that it is the real presence of the Lord that was with me and is with all of us who commune. And I don't know how they do it in other churches, but right in my church, right after you commune, you go into the side room and you take a little piece of bread and some wine to wash down the communion. And everyone was coming up to me and congratulating me, and I didn't cry, but my face was all pursed up like I was holding back tears, and I knew. And then when I came back into the apps, they sing the chant, "We have found the true faith," and that's when the tears came, because I had found the true faith, and it's a miracle that you know, having lived the life that I described, of just working and partying and not caring for religious things, that the simple fact that I had a desire for the truth, God heard that, and God loves people that love the truth, and if you pray, He answers. And He led me to the Holy Orthodox Church, and I've now taken communion a second time, and a bit less intense than the first time, but still very intense. And I'm never looking back. I was a seeker my whole life, but I have found my home in the Orthodox Church, and now I'm turning inward and going deeper and deeper into the mystery of Holy Orthodoxy, which is an inexhaustible depth. Um, I mean, one of the things that I've found is the things that secular culture tries to give meaning to end up being these sort of mutations of what the Orthodox Church has always known to be true. You see, I've got some holy icons behind me, and you think of how people put pictures of loved ones in their homes. An old woman who's missing her, late husband might kiss a picture of her husband. We kiss the holy icons because these are our benefactors. These are our heroes. I think of how our culture is obsessed with superhero movies, and I've never really cared about superhero movies, and even less so now because I have real heroes and they're alive. I've got St. Nicholas, Tsar Martyr, St. Nicholas right there. Grand Duchess Grand Duchess Elizabeth is right there. Got some others over here. These are real people who did amazing thing, unbelievable feats. Reading the lives of the saints, I have an app that reads the lives of the saints to me, and I listen to it every day. And you know, this is the part that's going to be difficult to talk about, because I could go off in so many different directions about the absolute just treasure chest of things that Orthodoxy provides, the weapons that it gives you to fight demonic power, to overcome sin, um, the beauty of the iconographic artistic tradition of the church and of the churches themselves. Um, it's the real life. Orthodoxy is the real life. Our souls are meant for orthodoxy. And I mean, there's this aspect in which it's like an adventure. It's like Lord of the Rings, but real. Like, you can go on pilgrimage to these holy places and venerate holy relics. And I mean, our priests and monks look like wizards. My priest looks like Gandalf, Father Michael. He's got long white hair, great head of hair. He's still got all his hair. He's in a long gray beard, and there's something about having priests with long hair and beards that makes them more approachable. I don't know what's up with that, but God knows, he's there's actually canons about how men are not supposed to cut their beards and stuff. So God knows what he's doing with that stuff. Uh, but just this idea that you're a knight and you're a king. You have a good king. Your king is the Lord, and you serve him and you love him. Orthodoxy really is this magical uh, adventure, and it makes life better. It makes people better. It makes it. The world wouldn't make sense to me if Orthodox Christianity isn't the truth. Um, because I feel like I'm fully alive. And I said to a couple people after I was baptized and I communed, I said I feel like I'm breathing for the first time. Um, it's it's uh it's just amazing. All right, I'm running out of words, so I'm going to check the chat again. Yes, Jay, you're right. About these other forms of Christianity, they're just revealing themselves to be fraudulent. I mean, look at the Pope. Look at the madness happening in the Roman Catholic Church. Like I said, I really don't know much about Catholicism, but I know people are not happy. They just banned the Latin Rite, um, which was like considered the traditional mass. And the big thing with that was like the Latin mass was the only thing they could get young people to come to. So they've banned that, and now it's just going to be a bunch of old fogies. No offense to any old fogies out there. Um, but yeah, and then Protestantism, forget it. Protestantism is just splintering into pieces, and like in the Orthodox Church, there's apostolic succession. We have an unbroken chain of bishops going all the way back to the apostles. They never changed the doctrine. And, the Orthodox Church battled heresy for the first couple hundred of years in iconoclasm and all that. But like the word Orthodox didn't need to exist. There was just the church. And then in like the 800s, you start having this divide happen between East and West. And then in 1054, you get the schism between East and West. You get the Eastern Orthodox Church and the Western Roman Catholic Church. And that's when you start seeing the word Orthodox. The word Orthodox actually just means correct teaching. And the Orthodox never changed anything. And the Roman Catholic Church did their own thing. And then I think it's 1517, Martin Luther posts his objection. Martin Luther was a Catholic monk, and he was mad at the church hierarchy in the Catholic Church, and so he posted what Orthodox agree are good um, uh, discrepancies about the Roman Catholic Church, but then he did the wrong move, which was he declared himself a bishop and started his own church. And that's exactly what Protestantism is. It's just a bunch of people declaring, like, I've discovered this truth about Christianity that nobody had before, and here's my church, and I'm the bishop of my church. And it leads to heresy. It leads to pride, prelest, which is spiritual pride, where in the Orthodox Church you have the unchanged, unbroken mind of the fathers, the holy fathers of the church, especially the early fathers, the first couple hundreds of years. Like I said, as more fathers came forward, they developed this theology. They came to understand it more deeply, but they didn't change it. And these men. If you read the lives of the church fathers, they're superhuman. These guys, their prayer, just men of incredible prayer. These people received illumination by being close to God in the most serious sense. And the Orthodox Church produced the Bible. The Bible didn't exist for the first couple hundred years of Christianity, but it was compiled by the Orthodox Church. But the Orthodox Church holds the Bible with equal weight that it holds Holy Tradition. Iconography was how people learned about the faith. Word of mouth. People didn't even really know how to read until like the 1500s. Widespread literacy was not a thing until the 1500s, and books were very difficult to make. They were expensive to make. So people didn't have the Bible. The Bible, only like the priest and maybe the king had the Bible. The people were lucky if they had a psalter. But, the tradition was passed down, and successfully, because it didn't change. And the iconographic tradition is central to Orthodoxy. I mean, the icons, they have theology in them. You're looking at theology with your eyes. You can see an icon of the Most Holy Mother of God. And so, a lot of the criticisms people make against Orthodoxy is like, oh, you worship images. We don't worship the image of Christ. We worship Christ who is in the image. And we don't worship saints. We venerate saints. We ask saints to pray for us because they're with God. They're close to God. Just the same way you would ask the sweet little old lady at your church to pray for you, how much better it is to ask the saints who are in heaven, glorifying God. So people, I could go on forever about criticisms that Protestants make against Orthodoxy, but there's plenty of videos about that you can find out. This is more about a testimony, and ultimately, I don't want this video really to be about me. I want it to be an invitation to other people to explore Orthodoxy for themselves, especially now in America, because this country is just falling apart, and people, their lives are meaningless. Nothing's actually meaningless technically, but people think that their lives are meaningless because they have no faith in anything except for their passions. The hedonism in our culture is killing people. I mean, we're considered one of the most freest societies that's ever existed, and we have the highest suicide numbers. Especially with this COVID crap, we got like little kids killing themselves, which is just unbelievable. So I think that I kind of represent a greater awakening that's happening in the culture, of people wanting to know the truth of things and coming to the Holy Orthodox Church. So, as I expected, there's only 4 people in here, and I know at least like 2 or 3 of you. Tony's been following my channel for a while. Glad to have him here. I missed some comments back here. Whoopsies. What am I doing? Play yoga videos on YouTube. No.
Sorry, I don't understand.
I'm sorry, you guys. This is my boomer tech thing. You know what's funny is this. My dad bought me a laptop for Christmas, and I'm streaming this on my phone, but I have my laptop right here in case I wanted to bring up any images, because I don't know how to screen share, so I was physically going to point my phone's camera at my laptop to show you guys images. It's how tech savvy I am. I'm trying to get back to the comments, and I don't know what the heck happened. Here we go. Tony, it was very difficult to stop pornography, but it is possible. It just takes prayer. Dan, glad I'm finding happiness. I am finding happiness. Hopefully salvation. It's a bit of a higher bar. The Roman Church was infiltrated for the last 100 years by Freemasons. I've heard that. Yep. Archbishop Vigano is alerting people. Yes, I've seen articles popping up about Archbishop Vigano speaking out against the Great Reset and stuff. And I mean, that's a problem. Even the Orthodox Church is having problems with that. I'm actually very, very, very blessed that my priest has not faltered. We were required because of state mandates to wear masks for a little bit, but he did away with that as soon as he was able to. And he actually, we had a Mulligan service, and he condemned vaccine passports in the service right in front of everybody, which I thought was awesome, because there's probably 20% of the people in my church are wearing the masks willingly. You know, this is the safest place on earth is God's holy church, and these people are kissing icons with a mask on. I don't understand it, but it's kind of crazy. But my priest isn't having it. And I'm very grateful, because some priests have kind of fallen into that madness. And I have people on my Facebook friends who are not going to church, and they're just reading the Typica on Sundays at home. And I can't imagine how distressing that must be for them. Because if you're Orthodox, you love the Orthodox Church, and to leave the Orthodox Church sounds, it's a tragedy. Jay says, I've been flirting with the Orthodox thing for a few months, but I don't even know where to begin. Your testimony is very inspiring to me. Yeah, it's a big responsibility. Like I said, it's a lot of prayers. The services are long, the prayers are long. You're expected to pray a lot, but it's like a muscle. It doesn't get easier, but you get stronger. I found after my baptism and communion, prayer became much easier. It felt like a lot less of a chore and more like something I need to be united to prayer all the time. I got my prayer rope to say the Jesus prayer. I've got this thing everywhere I go now. I actually had this blessed at my baptism. The big thing, though, I would say, is taking Holy Communion. Man, like I knew I wanted to remain when I was a catechumen. I was sure Orthodoxy was the real deal. I was sticking with it, but when I took Holy Communion, like overflowing, just overflowing. It's the joy and the hope. It's just I don't want like I. One of the big things with being a Christian is you're not supposed to judge people. You're not supposed to ever even say really an ill word about anybody. And I don't want to anymore. I'm just I'm too happy for that now. I don't get mad in traffic anymore. It's just, what a joy. We need more priests like yours in my Catholic Church. Yeah. And there are some. I mean, even there's plenty of good Catholic priests out there. Russian Orthodox believed in the real presence. Absolutely. Yes. I heard there was a great quote by Jonathan Pajot, not by him, but by a deacon he knew, who said, see if I can remember and word it correctly. He said, the Protestants think the Eucharist is symbolic. The Roman Catholics think the Eucharist is real. The Orthodox know the Eucharist is real because it's symbolic. So it's both and. It's a symbol of the body and blood of Jesus Christ, but it is also real because of that, because everything that we have, everything is a symbol in some sense. Everything in the church is symbolic for a very, very deliberate reason. Here, I'm actually going to show you guys my icon corner. It's Christ in the middle with the Most Holy Mother of God on his right and St. John the Baptist on his left. And every single Orthodox iconostasis is like that. there are very, very ancient and like I said, deliberate reasons for all of that, and nothing is arbitrary in the Orthodox Church. And so the the Eucharist, we believe it's a mystery. We don't even actually really technically use the word sacraments. We use mysteries, the holy mysteries, because it is fundamentally a mystery. I mean, we have our dumb little human brains, and we're trying to understand the infinite God. So, but yet, I don't even know what to say about it, man. The taking Holy Communion was just, I'm living for that now, you know. You guys, please shower me with questions, because that's the best way for me to explain this stuff. If I just try to, like, you know, outburst, I end up saying things that people probably can't understand anyhow. I've already been going for an hour. Wow. I don't have to go too much longer. I think I pretty much said everything I wanted to say. I'm probably gonna do more videos like this in the future, because there's a lot to talk about. And there's this whole, what they call the orthosphere on the internet. Jay Dyer, there's one of them. Michael Witkoff, whose channel is Brother Augustine. This kind of this wave of new converts who are on YouTube primarily, but kind of doing what I'm doing now, just trying to talk about theology. And I think it's important, because there's I pray you find yourself a beautiful Orthodox trad wife and have many children. Thank you, Jay. I've been praying about that. I'm in a kind of a predicament where there's not a lot of women at my particular church that are my age, and the ones that are, they already have a husband and kids. There's either like they're my age and they're already married and have kids, or they're like way younger, like they're not even 18 yet. Yo,
what are you doing, man?
I'm live streaming. I'm on YouTube. Dan's in here.
Yeah, I was like, tell Dan I said, what's up?
I don't. Is he still in here? I don't know if he's still in here. This is on YouTube. I think he might have logged out. Here's Taylor. This is my roommate. Making devil horns, but he's got to do that. Oh, there he is. Dan says, "Hey." All right. If you guys don't have any more questions, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna do videos in the future. Tony, God bless you, Josh. It's so good to see him. Thank you, Tony. Thank you. Yeah, this is glory to God. It was him working through me. I didn't, like I said in the beginning, I didn't want any of this, because I didn't want to be a Christian. It meant, I had to change my life, and it's been tough. I've lost a lot of friends. I got in a big argument with my sister the other night. I'm not going to talk about that, but yeah, we forgave each other, so it's fine. And she was at my baptism. I'm trying to kind of nudge my family a little bit, trying to get more people. It's been tough, and I actually figured that doing a YouTube video on YouTube, people know what they're looking for on YouTube, whereas when I go on Facebook and just slam people with my hardcore Christian theology, these are a bunch of secular people. They're like, man, this guy's crazy. But I think if I put this on YouTube, people might actually seek it out, hopefully. So, yeah, thank you, Tony. Thank you, guys. Okay. I wanted, as I was saying before, I want to do videos. I'd like to talk about the whole COVID issue, but I'd probably get kicked off YouTube if I did that. But my big thing with that is the spirit of the age. The secular culture is not really offering anything good right now. New Hampshire, it's not been bad. We had like we certainly don't have any like vaccine mandates or anything like you're saying. Some of the cities, we had mask mandates that ended back in like the spring, or I don't even remember the last time I wore a mask. Actually, I do have to wear a mask at like 2 of my stops at work because they're in Maine, which I guess in Maine they do have a mask mandate, at least for municipal places. But it's been pretty lax here in New Hampshire. Although a lot of people just choose to wear the mask everywhere they go, in their car, alone in their car with their windows up. I just will never understand that. But um, yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I've been just lucky that our church hasn't caved to any of that stuff because you hear about wear a mask. I feel you joining the call. There's especially like it's such a crux issue for the Orthodox Church right now because the reason people are coming to Orthodoxy is because they feel that this is the last bastion of we've got this person's username is wear a mask, and I don't know if they're doing it in jest or not, but they think that Christianity is a cult. I would suggest go back to the beginning of the video because I probably agreed with you at one point that I thought Christianity was kind of like a cult, but that's because the Christianity that I believed was a cult was not real Christianity. So I'm pretty sure I found real Christianity, and I think if you watch the rest of this video, you'll agree. Um, um, Liam Gallagher. Oh, we're getting some more people in here. Keep up the stream. Quantum's live streams. Feeling it. Just make it regular. Ignore the troll. Okay, we'll go back. No, wear a mask is being merciful. He's going to go back and watch he or she. I don't want to misgender. Not trolling, expressing how I feel. That's fine. We're all about that here. Shut up, wear a mask. All right, this is the trouble. I'm on YouTube, and this is a free for all in many regards. So, especially once it starts becoming people that I don't know. I don't want to. I'm not going to talk about the COVID thing anymore because it's just too touchy of a subject. Um, the thing about Orthodoxy is just like I was saying, it is reality. Is like our souls are made for it. Is a cult an inherently bad thing though? I heard a good thing about cults that the difference between a cult and a religion is that you're allowed to leave a religion. If you try to leave a cult, the people get pretty angry. And there's probably other litmus tests for that too. But you can leave the Orthodox Church if you want to. We don't recommend it because of what happens after we die, but it just I don't know. I can speak more generally about like Christian apologetics that, if you don't believe in God, you're going to believe it's not that you believe in nothing, it's that you'll believe in anything. And we're seeing now, especially in I would say the last couple of years, where all the celebrities, all these celebrities, these actors and stuff, once Twitter was invented, we started looking into their personal lives and seeing the just madness some of these people believe. And I used to be of the mind that you could not believe in God and be a moral person, and just you could believe. I personally don't like the. Hold on, I'm missing other comments here. I would have totally been down with the Branch Davidians back in the day. I don't know what that is. I personally don't like the idea of having to live by rules and not to do this or that. Well, that is a rule. You're saying that I have a rule, and my rule is that I don't like to live by rules. So the problem is you always end up living by a code, whether you think you do or not. And I think eventually you can kind of you can skirt by for a while, but when the hard times come, when you lose a loved one, when you lose your job, like whatever it is, when hard times come, I didn't read that whole comment. not to do this or that because it's a sin, and pray every day. Yeah, yes, you have a rule in your name. um, yeah, sin. Sin's a tough one to talk to people about, secular people, because they don't want to believe that sin is real. Like, I put a post on Facebook the other day about feminism, and what did I write? Feminism is like, it's an idolatry of masculinity, because we're forcing or expecting women to inhabit masculine traits, and it's in and while sacking actual femininity, which is a holy and blessed thing. So, and I believe, and many believe, that it's because Western culture has forgotten to venerate the Mother of God. So now, and there was a girl who put an or a laugh react, and she's a lesbian, and she's in a relationship with another woman, and she loves basketball, and she is your typical, like, masculine woman, which exists, and that's fine. But when I say that, femininity is sacred, I'm talking about the rule, not the exception. But if we throw out the idea that there is a rule and an exception, we're just going to plunge into madness. So there are always going to be masculine women who don't feel that they want to have a relationship with the men. The church would say become a monastic. Um, the church always has an antidote for these things. And monasticism is a very difficult thing to do, but it's a very rewarding thing to do also. Feminism is largely a Marxist ploy to destroy the family. Yeah, yep. Yes, that's absolutely true. And we're seeing the fruition of it now, where it feels almost too late to talk about it. People should have been debunking this stuff before we had the internet and the ability to do it, because it seems like it's rooted too deeply now. But I think that, right theology and a proper understanding of Christianity is at this point, it's the only way out of these things. I said to my priest the other day, it seems like the only good news left is the gospel. You turn on your TV and it's just hell. Will I go to hell for having lustful thoughts? The fathers of the church teach that your thoughts are most of the time not your own. It depends on whether you entertain the thoughts or not. I have like horrifically awful, blasphemous thoughts while I'm trying to pray, and that's demonic attack. And you just have to cast out. They say the demons want you to talk to them. Don't talk to them. You're gonna have lustful thoughts. You're gonna have evil thoughts. You're gonna have hateful thoughts and judgmental thoughts, blasphemous thoughts. But the Lord allows these things for us to grow, because as we battle against those thoughts, we become stronger. Like I said, it doesn't get easier, but you get stronger. I feel that when it comes to religion, the cultural and traditional aspect is just as important as the spiritual aspect. I would say the cultural and the traditional follow from the spiritual. It's a natural follow. Like, it's very simple. If everybody tomorrow started praying and repenting, society would fix itself pretty quickly, especially if we repent. And repentance is Saint Isaac the Syrian says, "This life has been given to you for repentance. Do not waste it in vain pursuits." And the reason is that we are trying to get back to the perfection that we enjoyed before the fall. So, the Orthodox life is about repentance. In the evening prayers, there's the daily confession of sins, and then every week you go to confession, and it's it's very. I really want to choose my words, because if there's secular, non-Christian people that end up listening to this, as soon as you start talking about sin and confession, people just run away, and I can understand why, but uh, it's I refuse to stand by rules where I am shamed for being a woman who likes sexual activity. Um, like, I mean, everybody likes sexual activity, but it's like, if you just, like, I like chocolate cake, but if I eat chocolate cake all my life, my teeth are gonna fall out. Um, just because you like something doesn't mean you should do it. Like, okay, how can I say this? You know, I liked looking at pornography, but it was ruining my life. I hadn't had a relationship with a woman in a long time, and I felt I had no confidence at all. I felt like a piece of crap. It was messing me up. But sure, there's a part of me that likes it, but it's like, are you listening to the carnal desires of the flesh or the yearning of your heart, the yearning of your soul? Because in your heart, if you really are honest with yourself, you know that the best things in your life are the things that you had to sacrifice for. Um, yeah, I mean, the Orthodox standard, it's the highest bar there is, and I'm not married, so I'm celibate. I don't look at pornography. I'm not having relations with strange women. I'm actually considering monasticism because I've been such a loner my whole life. It seems like I might actually be cut out for it. Monasticism is very difficult. I'm very lazy, so I don't know if that's going to pan out. I'd prefer to just have a wife and have a family, but we'll see. We'll see. But the Orthodox Church prescribes for people either find a enter into holy matrimony and have a family, or become a monastic. There's there's exceptions where people are what we call fools for Christ, and they go live these absolutely wild, crazy lives. And you can read about the holy fools for Christ. There's Saint Xenia, who's actually the patron of my church. Saint Basil, the fool for Christ. Um, you could try to be a fool for Christ. That's a weird, crazy life. But um, yeah, the problem. There's a quote by one of the fathers that, like, the demon of lust will boast before all the other demons that he took most of the spoils, because lust is it's the easiest trap for people, especially men. I mean, women too, but for some reason that one just affects men more often typically. Um, and it's difficult for me to speak about these things, because I always feel like I sound like an elitist. Like, here I am with my virtuous life, and you naughty non-Christians need to get right. That's not the case. This is a difficult life, but all the best things in your life are the things that were difficult to do, and this is the ultimate extrapolation of that. Um, got more chats coming in here. Islam is right about women, and that's a fact. I'm not going to say anything about that. I need to hear how you stopped pornography. Well, all right. So for one thing, let me start here. I was introduced to pornography at a very young age, before I was in my double digits. I remember being like 6 or 7 years old, and I was playing in the woods with my friends, and we found a suitcase full of hardcore pornography magazines. So that's awful. I mean, children. The whole point is to preserve their innocence for as long as you can. So to be introduced to that at such a young age, that warped me. And then, growing up in the internet age when I was a teenager, as soon as I had a phone that connected to the internet, it's like anytime I had the urge, because I had no moral qualms about it. I didn't believe in God, and if I had an urge, just go take care of it. And that caught up with me, though, because by the time I'm like, I don't know what age I started having, like, uh, even before I was a Christian, I kind of started realizing, like, this isn't a good way to conduct myself, because I'm looking around, I have no girlfriend. I don't, but my relationship to women was terrible. And so I kind of knew there's something wrong here. And then actually, I remember right before I started looking into Christian material, there was a book that came out by an atheist who was like, Your Brain on Porn. I never read the book, but there was a lot of talk about it. And, he was preaching to the choir at that point, like, it's just bad for your brain. So, and then I started getting into Jordan Peterson. And at this point, it wasn't like I was doing it any less at this point, but I was coming to understand that it was bad and wrong and all this. It took prayer, just praying every day. And every time I did look at it, I would run up to my icons and prostrate before them and beg God to forgive me. And like I said earlier, it just started to I weaned. I just was doing it less and less and less, and hating it more and more and more, and crying and there was other things I had to stop. I had to stop looking at women on the street who were immodestly dressed. There was another thing. It was like I thought I hated women when I was in the mires of porn, but what I realized when I became a Christian is I don't hate women. I hate immodesty. It's not it's not right spiritually to just flaunt yourself everywhere you go, because if you're a woman and you're dressed immodestly, everywhere you go you're tempting men and driving men crazy, and it's just bad juju. It's bad for their souls. It's bad for the soul of the person who does it and the person who it's done to. So it was just coming to an understanding of the spiritual reality of it, which is that it's bad for me, it's hurting me, and it's angering, and and I love God, and I don't want to disappoint God. And you can apply that to any passion that people have. Like we're still in the nativity fast because I'm on the old calendar, so it's not Christmas yet in my church. So we're still fasting, and I suck at fasting. It's all right, hold on. We got some more comments here. What is your view on masturbation? Yeah, masturbation is wrong. I mean, we really, unless you are in a blessed marriage, you have to refrain from sexuality because it's not blessed. It's like it's a gradient where you have blessed marriage between a man and a woman, and then everything outside of that isn't blessed, but it splinters into increasing degrees of disorder. So maybe up here it's just masturbation, but down here it's something terrible, like rape, or it starts as something small, but so it's better not to partake of any of the non-blessed stuff, because it doesn't lead anywhere good. And the other thing is that there's great benefits. I don't masturbate anymore, and it's very difficult, but I have more energy now. I get up early in the morning and I feel I'm like a spring chicken, and I feel more confident about myself. Purity is a very rewarding feeling. It makes it easier to pray. It makes you feel closer to God. It's because you're more like God when you're pure. Um, Let me keep going here. Do you remember all that porn underneath that guy's couch that lives in your grandmother's little apartment? Oh yeah, of course. That was, yeah, Kevin. All right, people that don't know me and are watching this, what the heck is he talking about? Yeah, I mean, porn was just ubiquitous my whole life. You know, this in especially as now and in our culture and everything, of course. Why does the chat thing keep disappearing? I agree that women should be covered up in public. Yes, yeah, just dress modestly. You don't have to sacrifice beauty. You can, to me, a beautiful woman is a modestly dressed woman because she knows her value, and she keeps her nakedness for the man that she loves, and that's extremely respectable. I don't like when I see women scantily clad. It's just I feel bad for them ultimately because they're victims of their passions. But any respectable man, if a woman wants a respectable man, then be respectable. That's very basic. Yes, God created sexuality for reproduction, not entertainment. Yeah, that's a hard thing for people to realize. Like, the purpose of sex is, ta-da, it's for making babies. It's not for self-gratification. Because self-gratification of any kind, whether it's eating too much, it's always something that's too much. It's always too much, or it's a disordered way of being. It always just leads to hell. It's like, but and I got more comments coming in here now. My friend is 15 and sleeps with lots of different girls at school. I keep telling him it's wrong and not godly, but he won't listen. Yes, it's very hard to get through to people when they're steeped in carnal passions, or carnal passions that feels good. Because there are two ways of living. Do you withhold gratification for the sake of, this is right from the Bible. Don't store up treasures here on earth, store up treasures in heaven. There's two modes of Okay. Sorry, I was getting a phone call there. It's my sister. Well, an hour and a half. I do want to wrap this up soon, you guys, because actually, Jonathan Pajot, who I've already mentioned a couple times, he's doing a Q&A at, I think, 9 o'clock. I would like to watch that. My friend. Oh, I saw that one already. Yeah, so this is a young person. Man, I'm 30 years old. And it was tough for me when I was in high school. I don't even know what's going on in the schools these days. I feel so bad for this younger generation, because they're just spoon-fed a whole lot of crap. This is fascinating, even though I can never see myself stuck. It's difficult. It's very, very, very difficult. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It takes a lot of effort. It helps if you love God first. One of the things, like, Orthodoxy is ascetic, which means we have a phrase, mortify the flesh. We fast. We have 4 different fasting seasons in the church. We pray a lot. You have to fight sleep to pray sometimes. You deny yourself. You deny the body. You deny the flesh, because the flesh is carnal. It just wants more and more and more and more and more. You have to fight that. And it's, like I've said it like 3 times now, it doesn't get easier, but you get stronger. But it is generally good advice, and I've already violated this good advice, not to speak about the ascetic aspect of Christianity until someone loves God. Because if you don't love God, there's like, if I go to somebody who is not a Christian and I say, hey, why are you eating that? You should be fasting right now. Don't you know it's a fasting? They'll never go anywhere near Christianity ever again. But even though I'm terrible at fasting, I love fasting. When I do it well, it's rewarding. It sets my prayer on fire. It brings me closer to God. You have to develop a love for God first before you can even understand why ascesis is important. Thanks. Advice. You're welcome, Tony. For architect, that looks like a spam comment. I hope my heart's in the right place. I've been trying to get it there for a long time. Why it's wrong in such a young age? Let him realize the whole thing by himself. Maybe he just needs time. That's true. When you're young, you do kind of have to fall down and get back up a couple times. Life has to kind of smack you over the head a little bit. But obviously there's the optimal path that you just try to be virtuous your whole life. That's tough. That's very tough. I see it in my church when I see these families who have young kids who love God 10 times more than I do, and they're going to be saints. I mentioned this little altar boy earlier in the stream. I look at this boy, and I feel like I'm looking at a future priest, a future bishop. This kid loves God. He must be 4 or 5 years old, and he holds the candle, and he wears the vestments, and he's very quiet and soft spoken, and he wants to help with the candles, and it's just amazing. if you get people on the right path at a young age, if they fall in love with God, it's amazing. But it's available to all of us, even if we didn't love God when we were young. Hello, by the way. It's your subscriber from Ukraine. Oh, Ukraine. Ukraine is a very Orthodox country. Ukraine is having a lot of turmoil in the Orthodox Church right now between Metropolitan Onufry, blessed be his. I'm an Onufry fan. I don't know what's going on with that other church over there in Ukraine, but we Americans have a bit of guilt for that because our State Department meddled in the Orthodox Church in Ukraine, and that's tied into all this nastiness that's happening between Russia and NATO right now. I don't want to talk about that. Anyway, true. I just worry for my friend and other friends who all do sins and might go to hell, and that's it. Your heart is in the right place if you're worrying for them. We have to want for the salvation of everybody. I'll tell you right now, that's been the most painful part of this for me. Is I'm the only Christian in my family, let alone Orthodox Christian. I'm the only Christian in my circle of family and friends, and I feel as though I've been given a treasure chest and I want to share it with them and nobody wants it. That's extremely, extremely distressing to go through. But the thing to do is trust God, because what I tell myself this all the time. I say in prayer, Lord, I, a sinner, love my friends so dearly, and how much more do you, the perfect God, love them? 10,000 times more than I love them. If I want what's good for them, how much more do you want what's good for them? And I have no power, and you are all powerful. So you trust God. You pray for your friends and your family every single day, and trust that that God's going to work through your prayers. The fact that I became Orthodox, I can't help but see this providentially, as now I have the task of ministering to my friends and family who don't know Christ. That's part of this whole path that I'm on, and it's a monumental task, but I'm trying to do it. It's very difficult. How many times have I said this dream? It's very difficult. It is, and I'm very lazy. The other thing is, what made you change to Christianity? I really had to make a side note that it is Orthodox Christianity. I do believe, this is hard. I know that some of my Protestant friends are going to see this. We believe that the Orthodox Christian Church is the one true, holy, Catholic, and Apostolic Church. That doesn't mean that I don't love anybody. We don't hate anybody. We love all people, and we want them to come to the knowledge of the truth. But Orthodoxy is starkly different from what people generally think about Christianity. What made me become a Christian? Oh, just watch the whole rest of the video. I explained it was a search for the truth. I made a commitment to myself that whatever the truth was, I was going to follow it, even if that meant sacrificing things that I didn't want to sacrifice. That's what I spent a bit of time talking about having to give up pornography and marijuana, drunkenness. Still allowed to drink in the Orthodox Church, by the way. Just can't get drunk. So that's a nice little relief valve, so to speak. We actually have monks on monasteries who make hard liquor, which is kind of funny. But anyway, that's a side note. What made me become a Christian? I don't really know how to summarize it, because I'm still at the box truck driving job. I'm still driving my box truck around, and I was just researching the heck out of everything. I learned more in the past 6 years driving my box truck than I did in all the years previous, in all of school. I didn't learn crap in school. I don't remember anything I learned in school. It was all nonsense. It was all useless. It's probably why I dropped out. But I was searching for the truth. I studied history. Learning about history is that'll make you a Christian. In fact, Tony posted that quote earlier about, if you I can't remember what it said. If you study history, you can't be a Protestant. Yeah, I don't know how to summarize it. It's a mystery why I became a Christian. It's still a mystery to me. I don't feel like a Christian. I feel like a sinner. I feel like I'm unworthy of Christianity. Um, the only time I ever feel like a Christian is when I'm on my hands and knees crying in front of my icons because I've committed some horrible sin. Or when I'm at church. When I'm at church, I feel a bit like a Christian. The Orthodox Church, if anybody's watching this, the reason I made this video is not about me. It's for you people watching. Go, if you can, find an Orthodox church. And actually, I would say don't go on Sunday morning. Go to a Saturday night vigil service. It's dark in the church. It's candlelit. It's the prayers are extremely beautiful. And a vigil service, you can leave whenever you want. You don't have to stay for the whole thing. So it's a good way to bring people to the church for the first time. But there is the what I would say Orthodox Christianity has retained the mystical element that was always present in Christianity from the beginning. There's a monk who died in the 20th century, St. Joseph the Hesychist. He wrote and spoke and lived like St. Paul. Here's a guy that died less than 100 years ago, and he lived like someone right out of the Bible. The tradition is still alive. We worship a living God. Orthodoxy is the fullness of the truth of Christianity, and it's evident in our saints. I can't imagine I'll ever be a saint. It seems completely unattainable. However, I will say that when I take Holy Communion, kind of get a little spark of hope. Like, man, who knows what's possible? Communing with the body and blood of Jesus Christ in the Holy Orthodox Church is the point of human existence. It's the reason that we exist, and I'm absolutely certain of that. I wasn't certain of anything before that. So I think this culture, we need Orthodoxy so bad. I'm in America. We've never been an Orthodox country. Orthodoxy is generally new to the English-speaking world. There's still a lot of writings that haven't even been translated yet. But it's the ancient Christianity. It's 1,000 years older than the Roman Catholic Church. There are Roman Catholics who would disagree with me with that and say, well, no, we're the true church. I've looked at the evidence, and there's some theological differences. The filioque is one of them. The papacy is a big deal. In the Orthodox Church, we don't have a pope. Our pope, we do have a pope. It's Jesus Christ. There is a assembly of bishops who are of equal rule. Hold on, I'm getting some more comments here. Oopsies. Dan's heading out. Dan, thank you for joining. I'm surprised you stayed this long, because usually you get mad at me when I talk about Christianity. Dan, I'll see you soon. I promise. I know I've been working a lot lately. Have I read the I can never say that word, Philokalia. I just started listening to an audio version of it that Father Josiah Trenum put out. That's some deep monastic wisdom, and you can tell it's kind of intended for monastics, because they say these very extreme things that sound crazy, but if you understand the kind of extreme way that monks live, it's easier to digest. I definitely wouldn't recommend it to somebody just starting out to read the Philokalia, but yeah, it's definitely interesting, and I only just started listening to it. I'm going to listen to more. Everything, I never read. I'm always listening because I'm on the road. I have a huge stack of books right next to me, and I suck at just getting myself to read. Goodbye, I have to go now. Thank you to the Wear a Mask channel. Thank you for listening. It's very gracious of you to entertain ideas that you wouldn't normally agree with. And I really appreciate your courage in staying and being honest. So thank you for dropping in. Tony says yes. Yeah, the philokalia. That's some intense stuff. All right, you guys. I really want to sign out now because my sister. I got to call my sister back, and I got a Q&A thing coming up. But thank you guys so much for hearing me out. I made myself vulnerable today, and you guys stuck it out. And I didn't cry. I almost did, but I didn't. So thank you guys. I hope to do something like this again pretty soon. I've got. I mean, I'm full of my head's full of ideas. Just talking about the faith, and I'm gonna keep doing the music thing. I still love playing music. That's why I made this channel. And there's probably some people who are kind of angry that it went from music to me talking about Jesus all the time. But hey, that's life, you know. Alrighty, thank you guys so much. God bless you all, and I will see you soon.